I don't know what we can talk about in this nation without talking about white superiority, honestly.
Who defines the meaning of God also defines the relationship between economy and God.
African Americans spent $1.3 trillion last year, making us the 16th wealthiest nation in the world. Why have we not turned those riches into wealth to develop our community?
So in a time like this, how do we help our children cope mentally? Because children have a different perspective on these things, and like, how do we protect ourselves mentally, and how do we also help our children cope?
One of the things that we've been trying to do as a National Association of Black Psychology is that we actually created a kind of guide and workbook for what you do while you're sheltered in place, building on our traditional ways, and we're sharing that on the ABSI webpage, that there's something you can do in terms of reminding yourself, reframing this issue. Look, we're engaging in a time where people are saying to shelter in place. That's the biggest message everywhere. Soap companies are advertising on television, shelter in place. Car dealers are advertising, shelter in place. That's a common message coming across the airways, but there is also something we have to do that comes from our way. And our way, rescue way, is a concept that comes out of the Bakongo. We are Bakongo people. We've been miseducated to believe that we are just up from slavery, but we are actually, Africans are actually predominantly Bakongo. And the Congo tradition says there's a term called Zola, Z-O-L-A, Zola. Zola means love, not the romantic love that we get confused with, or not the love where we're trying to get someone to give me some sex, but Zola is the construct that activates our internal self-healing potential, internally in terms of my own individual body, but internal in terms of my family, internal in terms of my community, internal in terms of our people. So this Zola notion of love activates our self-healing potential. So we as African psychologists, and that label is also something I have problems with, but we as African psychologists have come up with a workbook on how do we enhance our family dynamic during the coronavirus and after. Zola. It has 5 styles having to do with remembering who we are, reminding ourselves of what we can do as a divine people, reframing this issue not as a sheltering in place or a lockdown, but as a moment for us to reflect deeply on how we're going to live in the world, and then revitalizing our family dynamics. We've laid out actually a workbook that we're sharing with our community that you can work through. You can sit with your family and talk about how, if we're binge, for example, if we are binging now because we're locked down, we're binging on television. Don't binge on all the daily reports about the disease and destruction of Zola of the coronavirus, but binge on some of those dramatizations that have shown our power. Like the most recent one, and people have challenges with it, but the most recent one around the Black Panther. Look at the Black Panther not as a fantasy, but look at the Black Panther movie as giving us keys to how we love each other, how we get conflicted with the confusion between diaspora and African people. Look at the movie Sankofa, and just binge on those movies. Look at the movie called Night John, where this brother who's free puts himself back into slavery to teach our people how to read. What do you learn from that? Binge on those kinds of things while we're in this time. So we use this opportunity to enhance it. We're calling it 5 stars. There are 5 stars that are ours. That have to do with remembering, reminding, reframing, revitalizing, rewarding ourselves, and create activities that we can do. Now, we can share that with you, share with your audience, that becomes a tool that we can use to make sure we come out of this thing better than we went into it. Come out of this thing better African being than we went into it. Because we right now, we got some problems in our community that have to do with the psychic damage that the Western grand narrative has imposed on us. But we can't come out of this moment of pandemic tragedy being the same way we are when we went into it. And so we're calling upon ourselves as Black psychologists to come up with ways in which we can share medicine to our community, share tools with our community that we can use. We can self-instruct ourselves on how to be the divine beings that we really are.
Wow. So what is the name of the workbook? What is the name of the workbook again, and how do people get a copy of it?
Yeah, the workbook is called While Sheltering in Place. While Sheltering in Place. And we're taking some of the best ideas of Africa and rescuing it. And then saying, how do you create practice? How do you create what you do in your house now? How do you create this notion of Zola as love? How do you as Black men show Zola to young Black men? How do you as Black women show Zola to the elderly that Western model said they're old and useless? How do we do these things in our place right now, that we come out not just surviving the corona pandemic, but thriving in the world as what Fanon talked about as setting afoot a new being. Fanon said, set afoot a new man. But I'm saying, how do we set afoot a new being, a divine being that understands that we walk in the world as divine spirits, and that all our relationships, all our roles, all our responsibility have to be examples of our divinity. And when I say divinity, I don't want us to go back and jump into the church and say, oh Lord, Jesus Christ is going to help us. He's returning. And I ain't got nothing, have nothing against Islam or Christianity or Judaism. I'm saying that we are greater than all of those things. But we have to walk in the world as personages that reflect the divinity of being divine. And so this workbook is being posted on our ABSci's webpage. We are hosting a series of Zoom discussions. There's one coming up this Saturday where we're having Black psychologists talk about how do we deal with our young people. You know, young people have and it's part of being young. I'm invincible. That's a natural kind of feeling. I can do anything except Western science have imposed upon that. You Black people can do anything that's bad real well. You can be the best criminals. You can be the best drug dealers. You can be the best addicts. But we got to flip that script and say we can be the best. But as a young person, your boldness has to be cautioned with your responsibility to advance our people. You can't be doing any old thing and cause our people to become weakened and sick. You have to take your energy, that wonderful, powerful time of being a teenager, where you think you can do everything, and use that to heal our community. Use that to protect Big Mama. Use your spirit to protect your community. Use your spirit to say, I'm cautious, but I'm not afraid. Don't be afraid, be cautious, but in your caution, understand you have a responsibility, young people, to advance our peoplehood.
Okay, so they can get copies. You want to just talk about these Zoom meetings that you're going to have, so where you'll share the While Sheltering in workbook?
Yeah, I can. We've done one already. I can signal one. I think it's already on Facebook, and you can share with your audience. There's a second one that's going to happen on this Saturday, and then there's the folks, Black psychologists in Florida everybody's doing something. And what we need to do is to coordinate these somethings based upon who we are as human beings, not as reactants to Western's psychic terrorism.
Right. Is there like a PDF copy people can download from a website or something like that?
Yes. I can share that with you. You understand? Everybody can stay in their lane. I'm not the teleperson. I'm not you. I'm not you.
Right. Share it with them.
I can pass off to you. It's your responsibility to make sure it's
absolutely.